Start the recording. Okay, so if we're looking at the Cloud Practitioner exam and we're looking down here at the, you know what? Let's do something different here. Man, they've really changed this site a lot. Bear with me just one second. Let's just look at AWS certification. All right. So if we're looking at AWS certification, you may remember that this certification is the first foundational certification, right? This is where we start when we're going to get certification. This one, by the way, is totally worth it, even if you never go beyond it, because oddly enough, if you get this one, and let's say you then took this one and then you took this one, it would actually recertify you with all the existing certifications you already have. So it is worth it, even if you plan on going beyond it, okay? Now, just know that if you take the purple certifications over here, these do not refresh lower level certifications. So this one refreshes these two, and these would refresh this one, right? Just to give you a little glimpse of the hierarchy, right? Now, Cloud Practitioner, as we mentioned before, is a 65 question exam. It typically costs $100, 90 minutes to complete the exam. I think you guys are getting exam vouchers. I believe that's true. I don't know for certain, but I think that actually is true. I think you're getting exam vouchers. And if you are, I'm going to show you where to put the exam voucher code. You usually get it after you complete the class. So if you don't see it yet, not a surprise. You'll probably see it probably by Friday at the latest. Notice, by the way, that you can use Pearson VUE or PSI. We usually use Pearson VUE. And if you need the exam guide, the exam guide's listed right here, including some sample questions and an official practice set. Now, that being said, I just want you to know that I don't think the practice exam questions that Amazon offers are actually really that good. We are actually buying some for you that will take you 24 hours to receive, but I'm going to show you where to go to sign up for them. And if you sign up for it, then you basically will get access within 24 hours or so. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So 65 question test, 90 minutes to complete. Need to get a 700 really to pass. That's it. Now the real question is then how do I study for this? Well, I'm going to give you a simplified guide, but I'm going to give you a bigger guide first. We're going to talk about this one first. I'm going to talk about a more narrow one. This is just for future reference or just for your own resources or for your teams. Know that AWS, in collaboration with a bunch of us, basically has written, let me close this down, an exam guide, which is really kind of a role and technology guide. If you need to ramp up on a technology in AWS, this is one of the best ways to do it. So for example, let's say that you're going to go after Cloud Practitioner. Well, guess what? There's a guide right here. And if you click on it and download it, what will happen is that when it pops up, it will literally offer you step-by-step links to free resources you can use to study for Cloud Practitioner Essentials certification. This includes things like AWS fundamentals, cloud computing, right? There's a free digital training because you just took the classroom training with me. There's also a free digital training that's slightly different for Cloud Practitioner Essentials, but still valuable. Shared responsibility model, pricing, the well-architected framework, different services. There's digital trainings. And by the way, notice like there's some of these are 10 minutes, some of those are 80 minutes, right? There's a lot here. You can also do some self-paced labs. And the cool thing about this is that these labs, let's pick one. Let's say CloudFront, which I think is free. This will actually take you to amazon.quicklabs.com, which is exactly where I'm going to take you later so that you can learn a little bit more about, like, get a little bit hands-on with AWS. Notice that down here is where they actually have you. Can nobody hear me? Brandon? Oh, Is anybody else not hearing me? I just want to check. Okay, cool. Brandon, sorry, but I hope it's just on your side. And I hope it clears up quickly. Notice that here's the self-paced labs, and we're going to talk about a little bit more about how to get even more access to those labs. But notice down here is where you're actually signing up for the exam, right? There is an exam prep, like the exam guides. So there is an exam prep that's actually out there as well. but you really don't need it if you do the 3 simple steps that I'm going to give to you. The first is that this kind of thing builds expertise. So if you really love this, because this will take you probably about maybe 10 to 20 hours to really kick out, this kind of thing is going to serve you exceptionally well. This includes the self-paced labs, of which you have free access to. So just know that this guide is step-by-step, the most comprehensive way to prepare for the Cloud Practitioner exam. I'm literally going to post this actually in chat so you can have it. Just going to post the link to the guide. So here's the link to the guide. And then this is the link to ramp up guides in general. Now for your teams and other people, here's another cool thing. Let's say that you decide to take Cloud Practitioner, but somebody on your team's like, I don't really know much about containers or machine learning or data analytics. There are other guides on how to ramp up as a machine learning specialist on AWS. So this includes, by the way, business stuff, right? Because there's a business professionals guide. They don't have Scrum Master. I'm sure, right? You know why that might be, or a project manager, but they've got other specific technologies and other roles on this website as well. So just know if you're looking for all the free resources you want on training and how to get prepared for your role, they've got it. Some of these go incredibly deep. Like I am talking like all the way to professional level studies. So just know that if you want that, some of these guides, particularly for the roles, will get you there. So they're amazing. So this is step 1. Get the guide for what you're targeting, in this case, Cloud Practitioner, so it's super easy. Now, once you've got the guide, obviously it's recommended that you actually follow what the guide says. So, right, you actually do what the guide says. I have a much more simple guide, but it contains components from this guide, and it mainly revolves around practice exams. But I think that these ramp up guides are extremely comprehensive and very solid. So I would use these if you have a chance. I'm also going to send you a simplified guide that you can also use if you're under like a time crunch. So that gives you the expertise. What about hands-on experience? Well, as you can see in the ramp up guide, it actually sends you to a link to amazon.quicklabs.com. If you and only you sign up with your bah.com email address to amazon.quicklabs.com, something magical will happen where you all of a sudden will start to see credits underneath your name once you log in using that email, using that profile with that email address. So just a reminder, you have to sign up with bah.com as your email address. And you, of course, have to have taken a class with us. And you're going to get access to anywhere from 20 to 500 credits. Why is it 5? Why is it 20 to 500? Because it's going to change because a bunch of people at Booz are probably using the credits. And so just know that you're going to see it change because it's a pool of credits. That's not just yours. Everybody in Booz who's ever taken a class with us has access to Quick Labs. Now you might say, Michael, why are you making such a big deal about Quick Labs? Like, who cares? Right? Like, I don't really understand. Like, you said that the ramp up guide was for expertise, and you said that this was for experience. What do you mean by experience? Well, let me show you. So amazon.quicklabs.com is a catalog of classes and free labs that you can take on AWS. So if we come down here, let's say we do an introductory one. Let's say we're going to take a lab and like, I really want to understand CloudFront and I've never used it before. I can click on Introduction to CloudFront. This one happens to be free. It's a 55-minute lab. And if I click on it, here's the magic that happens. You don't actually have to have your own AWS account. They will give you an account temporarily just for the duration of this lab. Although I don't even know what that is. Hold on one second. Oh, that's the markdown thing, isn't it? Hold on. I don't know what that is. Anyway, if you click on Start Lab, what will happen is it will actually start an AWS lab for you to use, and it will provision the lab resources in this like lab specific account that they're using. Now, it's going to take a minute for this to start, but once it finishes provisioning, that timer is going to kick off, and it's going to allow you to log into your own private AWS account. And then all you have to do then is just follow the instructions. Start the lab, open the console. Notice it says, do not change the region unless instructed. By the way, if you are bad at reading and following instructions, this is going to be a horrible time for you. So just make sure that if you're usually not that detail oriented, make sure you actually read the directions. because I'm not like someone who typically reads the manual on things, but I do when I do these labs because, you know, if I miss a step, the whole thing goes horribly wrong. It's like Jenga, right? So note that task 1 is to store a publicly accessible image file in an S3 bucket. So you create a bucket. They're calling it CF bucket, but notice it says replace bucket with a random number. Remember, bucket names in S3 are globally unique. So you can't use CF bucket because I guarantee you somebody has it, right? So task 1 is to store in a publicly accessible S3 bucket. Step 2 is to create a CloudFront distribution. Step 3 is to create a link to your object. And step 4 is to delete your distribution. That's a good question, Matthew. They usually give you 2.5 times the time that you need to finish the lab. So if you need more than 55 minutes, you might have walked away from the lab because you got distracted or something, like something came up and you had to walk away. Once that timer hits 0, your lab is going to delete itself, including your AWS account. So all your stuff is going to be gone. So make sure that if you commit to doing a lab that you start it and finish it, because if you don't, it's going to be deleted as soon as the timer hits 0. Some of the labs, by the way, are 2.5 hours, you know, and once it hits 0, it's gone. So that timer is a non-negotiable timer. Once it hits 0, it's all gone. So in a time crunch, Sabrina, I'm going to talk about that because it's going to be the last step. So it's not necessarily going to be expertise building. It's not going to be necessarily the experience building, because you may not need a whole lot of experience. But if you're somebody who learns through experience, then these kind of labs can be very useful. That's the second step. The third step is the one that is arguably the most important if you're under a time crunch, because it's going to teach you the most, right? You're going to select join, because I don't think you already you have an existing login, Gregory, unless you've taken, you know, we've asked you to sign up to that before. Yeah. By the way, I notice I didn't stop it. It's still going. When it hits 0, it's going to send me an email and say, hey, you took a lab. How was it? Right? Because it's just going to delete everything. So I'm actually just going to leave it alone. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to end it. Let's just make it easy. There we go. Cool. All right. So this is how you get hands-on experience. This is step 2. Now let's move on to the other one, step 3, which is arguably the most important and the one that's going to really prep you for the exam. We are partnered with a site called Tutorials Dojo. And Tutorials Dojo is run by a gentleman named John Bonzo, who is got a didactic memory, a photographic memory, and is a really cool person, actually. And if we go look at his Cloud Practitioner exam on Tutorials Dojo, what's going to happen is that you are going to sign up with your booze email address, bah.com, right? And by the way, it has to be like last name _ first name. Please do not use your weird number. I know you guys have those like employee IDs. Please don't use those, right? If you sign up with last name _ first name at bah.com, you will automatically be signed up, right? You all, in 24 hours, you'll automatically be signed up to get access to Cloud Practitioner. So just note that, like, for example, I'm going to sign in here. When you register, you'll get an email that says, hey, you are now signed up for Cloud Practitioner Essentials, and you now have access on Tutorials Dojo to this class. Now, let me go ahead and get down to Cloud Practitioner Essentials, which I believe is typically at the bottom. What's in here is that we are asking that if you are preparing for the exam, that you actually do what's called the review mode exams. Now, notice that there is a number of options here, because there's about 6 tests that you can take in the review mode exam. Right? So, or there's 5 actually. So what's going to happen is that, let's say I choose test number 4. Here's what you're going to do. And Sabrina, this particularly speaks to the answer to your question, is that you're going to run through this single set of questions again and again until you can get 90%. You might say, Michael, hold on, Michael, why, like, why would you want us to do this to 90% or 95 percentile? What we ask is that you do at least 2, possibly 3 of the sets of questions until you can get 90 or 95%, but just do 1. Just keep repeating 1 until you can get 90 or 95 percentile. The reason is that this is going to teach you all of your gaps in AWS knowledge. And you might be thinking, well, Michael, isn't this just memorization? It's actually not, but it is. But it's not just memorization. Remember, this is a trivia exam. This is not a hands-on exam. And just to say this, the reason we're asking you to get a 90 or 95 percentile is that these are not copies of the exam. These are all approved by AWS. But John has a photographic memory and works with AWS to make sure these questions are as accurately worded as he can be without violating any NDAs or whatnot with Amazon, right? So here's what you see. You get a question like this, and remember, we're asking you to take a review mode questions because we want you to see the answer right away. We want you to train your brain to know what the right answer is. So here, a number of servers in your on-premise data center have been collecting dust over the few years. What's the benefit of moving to the cloud in this case? That's a good question. So in this particular case, is it the ability to pay for only what you use? That sounds accurate, especially if you got servers that are unused. Physical servers are managed and maintained by AWS for you. I don't think that's what they're saying, but I could be wrong. The ability to provision resources only when you need them. That could be relevant, right? And then maybe it's AWS has automated services for you. That doesn't seem right, right? So let's just take a guess because it doesn't really matter, right? Let's say it's the ability to pay for only what you use. Let's just check it. I suspect it might be C though, and it is C. So the ability to provision resources only when you need them. Here's the cool thing about these practice exams. 1, they're going to tell you what the right answer is. They're going to tell you why it's the right answer. They're going to tell you why the other answers are wrong. So that way, like in this particular case, I would actually read why I thought maybe A was the right answer, because I'm like, okay, I thought A was the right answer. And it says the ability to pay for only what you use is incorrect because cost optimization is not the requirement. Oh, did I misunderstand? I thought they were optimizing for costs. No, they were optimizing for provisioning. So not wasting resources, which by the way, does help cost, does it not? So, and then what they're going to do is they're going to tell you exactly where in the AWS documentation they got it. And look at this, cloud best practices. And they're going to tell you the 6 advantages of cloud computing, which you already knew, but just in case. And then if he has an exam study guide, which I probably would ignore, but in case you want another one, you can have a third one if you want. And then he keeps doing this. So if you're on a speed run where you're like, I got 3 weeks to get this thing done. I don't have time to mess around. I can't read all those white papers and I don't have time to mess with labs. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go straight to the practice exams and you're going to do the 1 set of questions until you get a 90 or 95 percentile. You might be tempted, by the way, to cut and run at like 80%. Don't do that. You're going to lose. First of all, the questions are not identical. So you're going to lose because you're going to lose some points because the questions aren't going to match. 2, you're going to be stressed, right? So just know you're going to lose some points because you're not going to be performing optimally. So my recommendation is spend 45 minutes to an hour every day mastering these practice exam questions, and they're going to get you ready because you already got exposed to about 60 to 80% of the material by taking the class with me, but you don't remember it. Why? Because you saw it 1 time. So do the practice exams every day for the next 2 weeks. And, I wouldn't recommend this if you were doing associates or practitioner, but you're not doing those. Those are higher level exams. For this one, you can do that, right? Now, just so you can laugh, I actually have to take a machine learning exam within 3 weeks, and usually it takes 12 weeks to study. So I'm kind of in the same boat, just with a different exam. So I feel you, right? I feel you. So if you have to take it before December 15th, then I would say this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be doing these practice exams. You're going to get access in the next 24 hours just by signing up. And I think I posted portal.tutorialsdojo.com. Make sure you use your bah.com email address. It's going to sign you up. If you have any trouble whatsoever, and by the way, this is going to come to you in an email as well, so don't worry if you didn't write all this down. If you email support@webhsolutions.com, they will help you resolve any kind of registration issues, okay? Meanwhile, we're going to practice. Does anyone have any questions about any of this as far as like the steps, but that if we're crunched for time, that you're just going to focus on this last step, which is the practice exams? No? Step 1 is the ramp up guide. Step 2 is the practice labs. Step 3 is the practice exams. Good. Don't worry, you're going to get all this in an email. Plus, you've got this video, which is all going to get shared with you. So if you're like, I don't got it, you will. You'll have it all written down for you tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to show you one more thing, and then we're going to come back here and we're going to do the same thing we did with the knowledge checks, but we're going to answer some of these questions. You know, right? We'll probably stop. I'm going to check in with you, but we'll probably stop at like 5:15 just to give everybody some sanity back, because I know you've been hanging out with me since 8:30. Okay. Which is why I put in frequent breaks, because I knew it was going to be a longer day. But let me show you this first. Okay. So let's say that you're going to sign up for an exam. I want to show you where to stick your exam voucher, because I think you have double shot vouchers. So I want you to see where it's at. So you're going to sign in. Most of us are going to use an Amazon account, not an AWS account. Okay. So just use your personal account. Doesn't matter. You don't, it is not recommended, nor do you have to use a bah.com email address to sign in here. You're going to sign in on the left-hand side. Once you get signed in, like in this case, I've got a bunch of Amazon accounts that I could use, but I'm going to use my primary one. I'm going to sign in using an Amazon account, and then it's going to say, hey, I'm going to redirect you to another site called Cert Metrics. That's totally cool. That's what it's supposed to do. Once you're here at Cert Metrics, by the way, just notice, just in case you were wondering, like, Michael, are you really actually taking an exam? You click on exam registration and see, notice it says here, oh yeah, on Friday, I'm taking one exam. And then on the 17th, 2 days after you guys have your deadline, I'm taking a machine learning exam. Just so you know, there's like level 10 exams, but don't feel sorry for me. I chose it. Yeah. Let's see. Once you get here, you're going to choose your exam, but you're going to schedule with Pearson VUE. So the one on the right, Pearson VUE, not PSI. So we're going to click Pearson VUE. And it's going to redirect you to yet another site, in this case, the Pearson VUE site. Now, most of us are going to take this at home, and you're not going to do it on a testing center. And, so you're going to actually do online at your home or office. But here's the deal, and I'm just going to forewarn you. When you take this at home versus going to a testing center, you need a desk that you can take a picture of all 4 sides on. You cannot have 2 monitors. You can't have anything else on the desk. So my recommendation is get a laptop, preferably a personal laptop. Avoid the whole booze headache, because Zscaler is tricky. Hopefully you all know what I'm talking about. Make sure you got your photo IDs. Make sure your testing space is clear. Test your computer ahead of time. They're going to give you links to do that. And then show up for your appointment 30 minutes early. So you're going to read all this documentation to get ready for your exam. You can, by the way, sign up and then read it later, but make sure you do read it. You're going to pick your language. It's going to confirm that this is what you want. And then it's going to ask you to sign away your first, second, and third born children. I'm just kidding. It doesn't. It basically just says, hey, we're going to do some facial recognition. Here's our admission policy. You've got 48 hours to cancel or shift an exam. Here's a IDs that we'll take. If you want to reschedule more than 3 times, we're going to ask you to cancel, blah, 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 et cetera, right? You get the idea. Once you say yes to all the stuff, it's going to ask you what language you want your proctor to speak. Japanese and English. I don't know why. I don't know. French? Isn't that also? Anyway, moving on. So, or Chinese for that matter, or Spanish, or I could just, the list just goes on and on. Regardless, you're going to pick your date. And so let's say I wanted to take it Saturday the 4th, which would be the day after my DevOps exam. So that would be strange. And they're going to ask you if you want it in 24-hour time. And look, because you're taking it online, you have a bevy of options to choose from. So let's say I want to do it at 4:45 in the morning because that's when I'm freshest, which would be really weird because I am awake but not fit for public consumption. It's going to confirm everything that you did here, and then it's going to say, you want to proceed to checkout? Sure. This is where you stick your promo code. This is where you stick your voucher. So your voucher is going to go right here, and once you apply it, it's going to zero out your estimated due. I don't think it asks you for card details at that point in time or billing information because it's no longer going to bill you. And then you just click on next. It's going to confirm everything. And then it's going to send you some emails saying, hey, you signed up for a test. Here's what's going to happen. Do you want to add this to your calendar? It's going to ask you all the questions that you would expect it to answer. It's very automated. It's also going to send you reminder emails like 3 days and 1 day before. So it's actually pretty nice. Okay. Questions of any type? So just remember, at the like next to last page when you do billing, that's when you enter in your voucher. I believe, God, I think your vouchers are 2-shot too, which means if you miss it on the 15th, I think you can take it again on the 29th because you have a 2-week freeze period before you can take an exam again. Okay. Ramp up guides. We talked about ramp up guides. We talked about labs. We talked about practice exams. We talked about how to sign up, right? Let's see, Heather, I think it can only be done on a laptop, but I'm not 100% certain about that. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it on a tablet. The main reason for that, by the way, is they're going to acoustically fingerprint your room. They're going to have a camera running at all times. So I don't know that the iPad's going to support that, but I don't know. You can check with them, but I've only ever seen it done with a computer. I even tried it with a Chromebook and they didn't support a Chromebook. So you can have a laptop with an external monitor, Gregory, but you can't have more than one, if I remember correctly. Wait, is that true? No, you're supposed to have a single monitor. Yeah, I think you can only have a single monitor. So you could have the laptop, but the laptop has to be closed. Yeah, I would read the documentation. Don't worry, they'll tell you. They'll tell you pretty clearly. They're pretty nice about it. Just know that you need to be in an isolated environment. So I had a dog running around. The for like second time I had ever done the exam, they did not like that because they're like listening to what's going on in the room and they're listening at a very high like frequency and depth and all that stuff. And so they knew that there's something was running around and they were like, can you please take your camera and show us the room? Because they were looking for cheating, right? As you can imagine, they're trying to control the environment. So, I would just make it as simple as possible. No kids, no dogs. I've even thought about going other places to take the exam. So other than my house. Oh, Nathaniel, looks like I inadvertently answered your question. Yeah, so nobody can be in the space. Yeah, just to be clear about this, it has to be an enclosed space. Nobody can be in the room. If someone walks by, they will flag you. If it happens 2 or 3 times, they will fail you. You will not get your money back. So just know that they are stringent about that. It has to be isolated space. Okay. All right, let's spend some time playing with questions then, just to get a feel for how we're doing. We'll just because I know your brains are fried, we'll do this for the next like 20 something minutes or so. Okay. All right. Companies planning to use AWS Cloud to augment the resources of their on-premise data center to better serve their customers. How does a company benefit from using AWS? All right, everyone post their answers. A, B, C, or D, or 1, 2, 3, or 4. Because these were the 6 benefits that we talked about earlier today, right? So this question is a little weird, but I got to tell you, Amazon does this kind of weird little wordplay. So I'm going to give you some strategies as well, right? Companies planning to use AWS Cloud to augment the resources of their on-premise data center to better serve their customers around the world. How does a company benefit from using AWS? Little weird question, right? It's like, what are they asking exactly? Because I see 2 benefits. There's massive economies of scale, but you can replace low variable costs with the capital infrastructure expenses. You can replace high variable costs with, well, that's not what we're doing, right? So that makes C pretty much the clear answer, right? Because we know it's not D. That's just silly. So we check it out. Boom, there it is. Economies of scale, as stated earlier, was one of the rock solid reasons, right? We're obviously not going to replace variable costs with capital expenditure. That defeats the whole point, right? And then of course, here's all 6 of them listed just in case you need them, just in case you forgot. All right, well done. Let's do the next one. Which 2 are true regarding the cost and usage report? So the cost and usage report, I said, would break things down into a millionth of a penny. And that you could download it as an Excel spreadsheet. What would that allow you to do? All right, so I got one answer. So Michael took a shot. He said A and E. Provides you a dashboard that provides stats and expenditure, right? And then help you visualize, understand, manage your costs over time, right? All right, so I'm going to go with what looks to be the most popular answers thus far, which are A, B, and E, really. But let's go with A and E. Now, here's the problem. The cost and usage report actually is not a visualizer. So this isn't Cost Explorer. This isn't budgets. This isn't billing detail. This is literally a downloadable spreadsheet that allows you to upload it into other services, and it will give you millionths of a penny, right? So this is really about granular data across cost and usage and how to load that data into other services like QuickSight, Athena, et cetera. But, we didn't necessarily cover that in detail because it wasn't even part of the presentation. So notice here's the cost and usage report. And it talks in detail about why the other things don't work, right? Because one of these refers to Cost Explorer, right? One of these refers to the cost management dashboard, right? And of course, one of these refers to AWS budgets. So, right? So again, it's really about like what the different services are used for. You can see now why the class only covers about 60 or 80% of the material. The practice exams will get you the rest of the way. Okay, good guesses. All right. Which AWS well-architected pillar stresses the importance of selecting the most appropriate and right number of resource types for your requirement? If you want to select the most appropriate and right resource types for your requirements. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of thoughts about performance efficiency. I saw someone throw out operational excellence. Let's see what they have to say. So oddly enough, that one is about appropriate and right number of resource types for your requirements. It's about matching cost optimization, right? It's about really like making sure that you're choosing the right thing for your business requirements, right? Which is going to be about cost, but it could also be about performance efficiency. So I think that's kind of it's a tough question to get right, right? But performance efficiency really focuses on using resources efficiently. But I thought that was a question about efficiency. So I got to tell you, I might have gotten that question wrong too, actually, because I would have been torn between, is it performance efficiency or cost optimization? But in this case, they were talking specifically about aligning with business requirements. That one's a little tricksy. Don't worry, some of the questions are like that. Seems like sometimes the AWS questions are wordplay. Okay. This one we didn't talk about at all. So you wouldn't know it unless you took the practice exams at all, right? By the way, this is why we do the practice exams, because these are going to fill in every single gap you have. If you take even just one set of questions and you master that the answers to those questions, it's going to teach you things you didn't know about the services. Now, let's do process of elimination. Which of the following services combines 5G networks with compute services for mobile applications? First of all, does anyone know what Cloud9 does? Well, Cloud9 is an IDE. And by the way, that is something they bought. So that actually existed before AWS. Control Tower, well, that sounds like that could be a 5G thing, but actually that actually implements organizations. Amplify allows you to do low code solutions for hosting websites and whatnot. So the answer is actually wavelength. So if we check, because maybe Michael doesn't know what he's talking about, right? By the way, wavelength zones are inside of one of the things we saw briefly, very briefly, when we were looking at AWS's global infrastructure. So just know it's there. So really, this is just going to teach you about the other services. So as you do this, learn what the wrong answers are. Because what if they ask you about Amplify or Cloud9 as well? Remember, they're going to expect you to know at least what the services do, right? Even if you can't configure them. Remember, you don't need prayers, you just need practice. Although prayers couldn't hurt, just saying, depending on what you believe. Which of the following is an example of infrastructure as a service in AWS? So remember, there's software as a service, there's platform as a service, and there's the very low level infrastructure as a service. Which of these are low level infrastructure services? Beanstalk, I see votes for EC2. All right, let's check it out. It's going to be EC2. Here's why. Beanstalk is just a wizard into EC2. So it's actually not even it's not even really its own service. It's just kind of a best practice wizard for EC2. IAM is used for users, groups, and roles, as we talked about earlier. And CloudFormation allows you to define a file that then can be ingested into AWS, and it will create a bunch of resources for you. CloudFormation is infrastructure as code. So note that when you are part of a PaaS, infrastructure as a service, you're responsible for controlling this. For a PaaS, you just control the application's runtime and some of its configuration. And for a SaaS, you literally can only use the application, really. So different distinctions there. Yeah, Beanstalk is more of a PaaS because it's like a wizard, even SaaS actually. IAM is incorrect because that's not, it's a SaaS. And then CloudFormation is not even applicable. Okay. What infrastructure does Amazon CloudFront utilize to speed up content delivery to customers? So what physical location type does CloudFront use? Excellent. I see a bunch of really great answers. People putting B down, edge locations. If that's wrong, we got bigger problems. Good. Interesting. Moving on. You believe that your AWS root account may have been used without you knowing. What can you do to tighten the security on the root account? So on the root account, if you want to tighten the security so you can prevent people from getting in, which of these options do you do? Unfortunately, you can't disable root account credentials, so I'm just going to tell you that D is not it, because you can't do anything with the root account. It's unfortunate. I see that most of you put C, so let's take it. So let's take a gander, and that's accurate, right? If you want to tighten security on the account, you basically make it harder to log in, which is what MFA is. Changing the root password often is not a bad practice, right? But that won't like really tighten security if someone knows your password. Enabling CloudTrail will allow you to find logins, but that's retroactively, not proactively. And you can't disable root account credentials, so it doesn't work. Good. A customer is choosing the best support plan, which includes a dedicated technical account manager. Let's knock this one out of the park. Which one of these support plans is the only one that has a dedicated I see you all put enterprise. By the way, what was the name of the new one? Does anybody remember? Was it like enterprise on-ramp? Yeah, that's what I thought. Good. All right, enterprise it is. Hey, they're missing one. Where's the enterprise on-ramp? We're probably the first who saw that, actually. Okay. As an AWS customer, what offering do you naturally inherit from AWS after you sign up? Man, that is weird. What offering? That's so weird. I gotta tell you, this one's a little soft. I probably would guess D, and I see that a lot of you are doing that as well. I probably would guess D, but man, this one really throws me off. Yep. Yep. Hmm. All the best practices of AWS policies built to satisfy your requirements. I gotta tell you. Yeah, that's a little misleading. I wouldn't have gotten that one right, honestly. But you know, that's okay. They're not always crystal clear. I'm not even sure why that's still the right answer. All the best practices of AWS policies, architecture, and operational processes. I guess you do get access to the best practices. I don't know. Just doesn't sit very well. Yeah, it did. It makes you sound like you're getting something like super special, but you got to read about the best practices, right? I'm gonna write that one off, actually. Interesting. Okay. The customers recently experienced an SQL injection attack, which attacked their web application's database hosted in EC2. If you haven't looked this up before, look up Little Bobby Drop Tables and XKCD. It's a fun cartoon. They submitted a complaint ticket to AWS. What should be the response from AWS? Who's responsible for protecting a web application's database that is actually hosted, right? All right. I'm seeing a good mix. It seems like there's a lot of D's here, right? But hold on, let's see what's happening. I mean, to say this, it's actually A. Amazon's going to come back and say, "Hey, guy, by the way, we are definitely here to help, and since it was your application that allowed access to the database, you're responsible for securing that," right? By the way, patching an EC2 instance isn't going to fix the problem that the people can get from the web server into the backend database. There's an issue as far as SQL injection. Either the application is not parameterizing correctly, or someone needs to put a web application firewall in front of it. It has nothing to do with the database. An SQL injection attack is application based, not database based. So patching the EC2 instance that's hosted in EC2, that's not going to fix it. So that's definitely going to be A in this case. Firewall Uyin, as in the web application firewall, the WAF, which is part of that whole Shield WAF thing that we were talking about with Inspector at one point in time. The WAF's job is to filter out malicious code injections into the data stream. So if someone tries to put like drop table inside the URL, it'll block it. So yeah. Web application firewalls are very distinct little beasties that their sole job is to filter web traffic. That's what they do. All right, employee is asking for access to your S3 buckets. What should be the level of access that you should provide to him? First of all, this is a security question, so it should trigger some guy like, wait, what? I mean, because the answer is obviously that we're going to need to give them full administrative access, right? Because that follows the principle of least privilege. Good. Watch out for these tricksy questions. They assume that you're like following best practices for some of this, right? Remember, they're big on these industry standards, right? Least privilege, that's what we're looking for. Okay, which AWS service allows me to patch my Windows EC2 instances without having to RDP into them? This service was not even talked about in the class at all. So you would simply just have to know this because it's not covered at all. But it looks like some of you know it. Systems manager, right? I see that some of you posted D. So systems manager basically is the system based on the name, right? That would be used to manage systems. No, there's nothing wrong with guessing because you actually deduced it based on the name. I told you earlier, CloudFormation was infrastructure as code. Code deploy sounds like it deploys code. Simple workflow sounds like it manages workflows. Systems manager sounds like it would be responsible for patching, does it not? Just so you know, there's 17 major services underneath systems manager. Patching is one of them. Here's patch manager. This is just one you would have to know. This again, why we take the practice exams, right? You want to just get this again and again and again. All right, we're gonna keep going. Which cloud computing advantage describes how you can easily deploy your application in multiple AWS regions with just a few clicks? This one's a pretty easy one. Good. Going global. How do we go global in minutes? That's how. Okay. Due to a high number of visitors, many customers are timing out from your website, which is running in an auto-scaling group behind a load balancer. Upon checking, the auto-scaling group has stopped adding new instances to your group. Okay, here we are. Which of the following trusted advisor categories could provide you more insight as to why you cannot add more EC2 instances to your auto-scaling group? Now, I got to tell you, this one you kind of have to just have been exposed to a little bit, right? Because what are the reasons why an auto-scaling group can't add more instances? Well, there are two possibilities here. One, AWS has what they call account limits that allow you to only run a certain number of virtual machines or a certain number of buckets or whatever. Those are called service limits. So I'm going to go ahead and give that one, right? But what would be the other reason as to why you couldn't add another service? That doesn't make any sense. Now, I noticed that a bunch of you put A and D. That seems interesting. Kind of curious as to why D might be the thing. If we check this out just to see, it's actually going to be A and B, right? Here's why. So cost optimization, security, fault tolerance, performance, and service limits are the 5 pillars of trusted advisor. Now, the reason performance and service limits are out is that if your instances are experiencing high usage, they're going to have to see why. Like, why are they adding it? What's going on? Is it high CPU? Is it high memory? What's the problem? So we also might have hit our limit on the numbers of instances for the region, because remember, we're looking for insights as to why this is happening and why it's not expanding. These are not showstoppers that would cause auto-scaling to fail in its expansion, but these are. So again, something to just kind of be exposed to. You'll learn more about Trusted Advisor as you answer questions about it. Which of the following AWS services are not considered to be region-specific services versus global services versus AZ services? So which of these are not region-specific services? In other words, they either run in an availability zone or they run globally. You guys select 2 of these. Okay, so I see that WAF was one choice, and then it got switched to Route 53. I see someone else chose B and C. I saw D and B as well. So let's take a shot and see what the answer is, right? So I went with the first answer, and that one actually turned out to be correct. So the WAF actually operates outside of Amazon's data center. So it actually sits on the edge locations. So a WAF actually sits outside of core networking. So it's not region specific, it's outside of the region. Route 53 is a global service that is the only one that has 100% uptime. So Lambda is definitely region specific. CloudTrail is region specific, 100%, because you run it in a region, right? And even though it can gather from all the regions, and VPCs are 100% region specific, but they're not AZ specific. Good. Okay. All right. A customer has a popular website that has millions of viewers from all over the world and has read-heavy database workloads. Which of the following is the best option to increase read throughput on their database? If you need to make a database faster from a read throughput perspective, what do you add or do to the database to make it faster from reads? Yeah, oddly enough, adding a second like multi-AZ deployment or adding a standby replica is not going to make it faster because you can't read those replicas. But a read replica is going to work magic, because you can add a lot of read replicas to a system and they'll increase the speed. So read replicas are really just read-only copies of a primary database that's read-write. I think you can add up to 15 read replicas into a primary system. I think Aurora does that. Maybe the other ones have fewer, but it's pretty robust. So read replica is definitely the answer. So good work there. Here's an example, by the way, where you've got read replicas in 2 different regions. They got the primary in one of the regions, and you've got a standby fallback database in another availability zone in that same region. Okay. Which of the following actions is not going to affect costs when using S3? This one, by the way, we didn't really talk about a whole lot. Remember, Amazon loves to take your data, but they don't want to give it up. So a bunch of you answered B, which is spectacular. You can, it's like It's a little bit like Hotel California, right? You can check in at any time you want, but you can never leave. That's not what they say. They say check out, but you know what I mean. You can't leave. If you leave AWS, you got data transfer costs. But you can come in all you want. Which of the following is not a part of AWS's global infrastructure? Oh, this is a softball right here. Which one of these is not part of AWS's global infrastructure? Placement groups it is. Let's check it out. Placement groups, by the way, are used for high performance computing, and they are definitely not a location to stick resources, right? So, yeah. Placement groups allow you, by the way, to either make highly connected or distributed placement groups for like computing purposes or database purposes. Just depends on your reason. Okay. The blank has been developed to help cloud architects build secure, high-performing, resilient, and efficient infrastructure based on 5 pillars: excellent security, reliability, performance, and cost optimization. Which of the frameworks is this? Is it the cloud adoption framework? Is it the serverless SAM framework? Is it the Scrum development process? It's definitely the Scrum development process, right? I see everybody put C. Good. It is part of the well-architected framework, right? That's what those pillars represent. Excellent. Okay. What is the right arrangement of AWS global infrastructure components according to how big they are? Like from largest to smallest, what is the order of these components? Okay. I see some votes for A. Let's see it. There we go. So regions are the biggest, availability zones go inside of them. And then edge locations are typically just tiny little servers or even just racks of servers. They're not even data centers, right? They're not complete data centers. They're just tiny little server placements. Good. Which of the following is not a standard design principle when designing systems in AWS? Ooh. There's one that stands out, but only if you know the phrase. Yeah, Amazon's not a fan of infrastructure as a service. They're a fan of highly managed services. So servers, not services, is not going to sing with them. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? But the rest of this all makes sense. Okay. This is our last one, and then we'll do a short check-in, and then we'll close. Which of the following do you need to programmatically interact with the AWS environment? So if you want to interact on the command line or programmatically, which 2 things do you want to use if you're going to do that? I'll give you a hint. One of them is definitely not the management console. Because remember, that's one of the 3 ways, right? Is management console, command line, or through programmatically through an SDK. So you don't need the management console to programmatically interact. So then what are the other 2? Let's see. Someone said B and E. But let me ask you a question. Where are you going to stick the username and password programmatically? You're not. You're actually going to use an API key, also known as access key. So access keys make sense here, right? The other thing that you might need an SDK, right? Because you need a software development kit in order to know how to attend to that, right? So I saw that somebody put B and D. Let's check this out. There it is. So when you access something from the command line or using Python or Java or something like that, you have to use what's called access and secret access keys. These are created inside your user. And then the software development kit, since you're using Python, you want to import a bunch of libraries that allow you to manipulate Python. That's what it's there for. Okay. Let's finish the quiz and see how we did. We didn't answer all the questions, but maybe we did pretty good. We got a 69, we failed. It's okay. We didn't answer all the questions. Okay. Do I have previous attempts? I don't have previous attempts. Interesting. All right. So this is the practice exams. This is going to get you started. This is going to be gold as far as like revealing your gaps, helping you memorize the right answers, figuring out where you do and do not know certain aspects of AWS services. Reminder, the class only covers 60 to 80% of the material. This is where you're going to focus for the next 2 weeks. Every single day, every moment you can, try to work on one set of questions, then get to the other set of questions, but don't move on past the first set until you can get a 90 or 95 percentile. Okay. So if you have any questions or concerns, you will get an email from me, but if something pops up, just email me here. Not that you haven't seen 5 email addresses from me already, but you can email me here at michael.forrester@web8solutions.com. About 90 or 95% of the work I do is actually for booze. And so I'll be glad to answer questions. I know that you're under a rushing deadline until the 15th. Remember to sign up on portal.tutorialsdojo.com with your bh.com email address. I would do that as soon as possible because it takes 24 hours for you to get registered and turned around. You'll get an email that says you've got the Cloud Practitioner exam. I would get in there, pick one of the sets under review mode, and just keep working that review mode set until you get 90 or 95 percentile and just keep on going. Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything else they need from me before we close for the day? Let's see. Access to the practice exams is constantly updated, and I think it lasts for 3 years, if I remember correctly. Let me check and see, actually, because I can look at the top and I think we can see it. Yeah. So see how it says June 2024? You get 3 years. Just like an AWS exam. When you take a certification with AWS, it lasts for 3 years. They just extended that. Good. Good. Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. Okay, that's it. Class is officially done. Oh, by when did you say we should get the exam vouchers? It'll probably be within the next like couple days, Friday at the latest. Usually it's within 48 hours of the close of class. So, yeah. If you run into any problems with that, you can email support@web8solutions. If you don't get a response from them, please, by all means, talk to me. I'll make sure it happens. Right. But there, I don't know that that's ever happened, honestly. I've never gotten an email because support didn't respond. So you should be taken care of. Okay. I'm going to hang out for a few more minutes. I'm going to stop recording. If anything comes up, let me know. Otherwise, have a fabulous rest of your week and email me when you pass, right? Let me know when you pass. Okay. Good luck on the exam. Yep. Thank you.